Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Joining me today is NETX5. Today we're continuing on our reviews of the Tarantino films and we're looking at his fifth film today, Deathproof. This stars Kurt Russell, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Zoe Bell and a variety of other actors. This film really is Tarantino's stab at doing a slasher film where instead of the killer having a knife, he has a car and he uses that to, obviously kill his prey. And it sort of looks at two different sets of girls. The first half really introduces the girl and then we see them ultimately killed. And in the second half is really where the film picks up. And it looks at this other group of girls who start out as the prey but become the predator. And he becomes the prey in the end, and it's ultimately a battle against will of them trying to ultimately kill him for attacking them. And this film I've really liked for a long time. When it first came I really enjoyed. There's a lot to this film I really liked. And I still like, and I think obviously I think that the second half's better than the first, but I still like it wholly as a film. So what did you think of it?
Yeah, I was never the biggest fan of this particular film. This is the one Tarantino film that I was like, is this really part of his filmography? And like you said, the first half really wasn't doing anything to me. The first half was done in the style of the film he's trying to go for, and I never grew up with that style, so it just never really clicked with me. But like you said, once that second half kicks in, that's when I really enjoyed the movie, because I felt like I was watching, a straightforward Tarantino movie that was well written, great characters, and a very good story in that second half.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think the second half really picks up. I do like the first half because it sort of introduces Stuntman Mike, and it introduces the characters of what he sort of does, so ultimately how he kills these sort of girls. But then the second half really shows how he goes about it, and the second half, I agree, really felt like a true Tarantino film. It had the characters, it had the story, it had the fun moments, there was a lot of great dialogue,
great writing as well.
Yeah, and it just sort of picked up from there. And I hadn't really thought about it watching this film, because I've seen this film probably, I don't know, 20 times or something like that.
I've only seen it 2 times.
I've gone back to it many, many times, but I just felt there's something about it. It was a film that really showed me Tarantino's style in a way that I subsequently can see in the other films. And it's just a connection, I guess, with it, because I like those old car chase films and car movies, White Lightning, Vanishing Point, and movies like that are really entertaining.
Yeah, I never really grew up with those type of films, so this was a bit of a different experience for me, because I never really grew up with the exploitation films or the car films. So seeing something like that, it was for me, like I said earlier, I never grew up with that sort of stuff. So it did take a while for me to have it click with me. But I definitely liked what this film displayed here.
Yeah, well, me too. I think it's just great. The car stunts are fantastic, and it's all very practically done, which is extraordinary these days, because usually these digital cars or people aren't really in there or processed at the back like they used to do. So this is kind of refreshing in that regard. And he got a lot of great stuntmen to come in and do a lot of the driving, and it just sort of, just made it really fun and entertaining. And it was the first time Tarantino had actually done the cinematography. He'd never done that before, so it was quite interesting to see how he went about that as well. And I think a lot of people miss the point with this film, because it sort of encapsulates that exploitation sort of films that came out in the late 60s and 70s. And I think that this film really encapsulates that and sort of sets us in that sort of world. And if you're not familiar with that, like yourself, you said, then you mightn't quite get that.
And the fact that this film was presented as a double feature alongside the Robert Rodriguez film Planet Terror as well. So I can understand why people may not like this film, because it's part of a genre that isn't really explored as much today. Same with Planet Terror. That's a film that I've been meaning to rewatch for a long time. I've never been a big fan of it either. But yeah, both Deathproof and Planet Terror are films that either are for you or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I know Planet Terror is not for everybody, but I just want to... There's an edition of this out there with both films together with trailers in the middle, which is hard to find. But it's definitely worth your time. And Planet Terror is just kind of fun. It's a throwback to the early zombie films, you know, George Romero and stuff like that. So I kind of like it in that aspect.
Yeah.
But I probably prefer this one more, especially with all the car stuff within it.
Yeah, because not saying Robert Rodriguez is a bad director, but Tarantino definitely has more of a skill, especially with the cinematography he was able to do with this film. And plus, I think he had the better list of actors in this film, because not only did he have Kurt Russell, who was amazing, but he also had Rosario Dawson, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Zoe Bell, and a bunch of other supporting actors who I'm familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the acting. So I think Kurt Russell is just amazing, and he really suits the character. Really feels like he's from that world.
Yeah. And like one of the only few things from that first half of the film I liked, because he was the only thing in that first half that I was just like, yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does a brilliant job. Originally, that role was meant to be played by Mickey Rourke, but I couldn't see Mickey doing the stuff that Kurt Russell did, the choices that he made within it. And there's some really great humorous moments that he has in it. He does some of his own driving in it as well. And it just sort of was through ultimately Kurt Russell back into the limelight a bit. It was sort of his comeback. He hadn't done much previous to this film, so it was good to see him. But everybody else stands out as well. Like Zoe Bell, Tarantino's idea of having Zoe Bell play an actual character, not just do the stunts, and she actually does the stunt work as well, is just great. And it's an example of how he takes really talented people and is able to put them into the sort of films he wants to make in a great way. And I think this is a great example of that.
One of my favorite scenes in the film is in the second half, where the second group of women are just talking in a diner. And this scene very much reminded me, like instantly, was like, this is like Reservoir Dogs, where in the opening of that film, the group of guys are having a dialogue conversation, talking about just random shit. It's the same thing they do here, and just like Tarantino's writing is always top notch, and this was like the most entertaining thing I've heard in the entire film. Like the most interesting, like the most interesting conversation that was just about nothing.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I think it's a great scene. It's very well shot too, where the camera moves around, very similar to Reservoir Dogs, and I think that's great. Like it sort of introduces you to the characters. We have a bit of a story they tell, and talking about everyday things, but you sort of get a sense of who they are.
Yeah, about what their jobs are and who they are as characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's just a fun, entertaining movie. It might be for everyone, but if you're a fan of Tarantino and just like an entertaining movie, you'll probably get a lot out of this. I really like the style of it. I like that it felt like it was from the 70s, but it was set today. I like the music was really great. It has a really good soundtrack, I think, and there's a lot of music that he used from other things to put in to make it entertaining. I just like the colours that were used and the aesthetics and just the set pieces, especially the last car chase at the end is just fantastic to watch. And it just has a unique style and I don't know, something different about it than a lot of his other films. Yes, it isn't the strongest film in his catalogue, I guess, in his filmography, but I still have a soft spot for this film. Yeah, so ultimately, if you're a fan of Tarantino and like his dialogue and entertaining movies, definitely a film for you. It's fun, it has some humour moments in it, and if you just want to see a group of women kicking ass, this is definitely worth your time because it's just their ultimate chasing him in the end is just fun to watch, and it makes them a really strong group of women to watch on screen, and you really want them to obviously pay him back for what he's done, and which I really liked as well.
While the first half of the film does bring it down a fair bit, I really do not like this first section of the film. It's within the second section that things got immediately better. In fact, I would just say just watch the entire second section because you essentially don't need to watch the first half of the film to understand what's going on. The second half does a good job of like, you'll be able to pick the pieces like, oh, this is what's happening. But I will still say that Kurt Russell was the best thing in that first half of the film and for the rest of it. But yeah, as we've said, this was well shot, perfectly acted, great stunt work and action scenes. This was just an entertaining ride, and while it's not Tarantino's best, it's definitely up there as one of his most entertaining and enjoyable films. And I'm going to give Deathproof a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I agree with everything you said, and I really, really enjoyed it as well. And for me, I'd give it 4 out of 5. I think it's still solid and entertaining, and it's one hell of a ride, and I enjoyed that about it. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom. This has been NETX5, and until next time, enjoy the movie.